Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us today for another Frankly Speaking podcast, video podcast, we'll call it, something like that. This is episode 2, so if you're keeping track, we are now on our second episode, which is really exciting and fun. My name is Frank Gurnee, and with me I have Frank Raimondi. Say hello, Frank.
Hello, hello.
We are the Franks, and we are Frankly Speaking. So we truly appreciate you joining us today, and we have a super exciting podcast for you. Before we get started, we are doing this in GoToWebinar. So those of you who are listening live right now, you will have the ability to ask questions and engage with us. So we really encourage you to do so. On your GoToWebinar panel there, I just want to make sure everybody can hear me okay. If you can hear me, if you could just hit that hand raise button, that would let me know that you're hearing me okay. And that will let us know. Okay, seeing some hand raises there. I truly appreciate that. If you see us, if you can see our two faces and our thinning hair, then please let us know.
Don't go there. Don't go there.
I know. Well, we were talking about it earlier. So please throw a hand raise up if you can see us just fine there on your GoToWebinar panel. I truly appreciate that. Looks like things are looking good there. On your GoToWebinar panel, you do have a questions tab. So feel free anytime during the broadcast, you can ask questions. So go ahead and put that in that questions tab. We'll try to answer those. If they are pertinent at the time, we'll try to answer them live, but we will get to those questions at the end of the broadcast as well. So with all of that being said, I appreciate you. We have a fantastic show today. We're going to be talking about services, basically outsourcing and all that. Frank, why don't you give us a little background on what we're going to be talking about today?
Yeah, so thanks, Frank. And just again, as a quick intro, I'm Frank Raimondi. I manage the alliances and partnerships and distribution for IGI, the overall company parent of Nodeware, as well as our cybersecurity services. So we're not going to talk too much about those today, but I did want to just make sure everybody knows who we are. And the topic that comes up to us a lot, both from a software and services and in many of our discussions with MSPs is, I know my customers need this X service. X could be anything, could be, awareness training, could be vulnerability management, could be any number of programs. And they get to the point where they're hesitant. They might roll it out to a couple, and then they kind of come up with this problem of staffing, right? Of supporting this extra services that you do, and which then also limits you on your growth as a business, as an MSP or any other business. And so the topic, and we'll have a special guest that's really an expert in this. But the topic here is to think about and help you understand what resources there might be to help you build your business, expand your support levels without having to expand your staff, or without having to increase your staff. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, right? I mean, we constantly hear this, and it works in our regular lives too. I mean, we get busy, we have very little time, and time is tough. And how do you get everything done at the end of the day? At home, we might hire a lawn person, to help us take care of the lawn if that's a thing. Or, some people have the need to, have somebody come help them clean the house and that sort of thing. I mean, there's plumbing or just about anything, right? Anything that you need help with you have someone that you can call and rely on. But when we think about this from a business perspective, a lot of times we're not thinking that way, which is kind of funny, because in the MSP world, we kind of are the outsourced IT folks, right, for other companies. But when it comes to our own business, we're not always, looking that direction, or how, we can enable ourselves to grow in ways that maybe are outside of the box. So like, we don't always have to hire an employee necessarily for everything that we do. And I think that's what's going to be really interesting about this topic. So before we get into that, though, it's funny, Frank, I was thinking about for this podcast, I was like, there's got to be famous Franks out there. And I was thinking about this, and I'm like, I'm going to do some research, and I'm going to try to figure out if they're, thinking about Franks, who are the famous Franks out there? And you know what? There
The
is there's
two
not a
that come
lot.
right to mind, right? For me, are you asking the audience or are you?
No. I mean, no. I'm telling you, there's not a
Okay,
lot. So you probably got them.
yeah, the two that come first to mind is Frank Lloyd Wright, the architect,
Yep. Architect,
and
sure.
then a little extension of it, but Franklin Roosevelt, probably the other one that pops right in
Frank
there.
Sinatra, right? So is another one.
Yeah,
Franklin Delano Roosevelt. But man, it's funny. Lots and lots of characters named Frank, but not a lot of actual actors or famous folks
yeah,
out there. Frank, I just wanted to throw that out there because I thought it was this funny thing. It was like I wanted to like bring up all the famous Franks and stuff.
yeah.
But anyway, that's off topic, and we're not here to talk about that. But I thought that was super funny when I
Well,
was
actually,
thinking.
we can ask the audience if they are watching live that if they have any Franks that they want
Yeah,
to put it
throw your
in the
famous
chat.
Franks in the tab there, in the chat, so we can think about that. Like I said, a lot of characters, but with all that being said, I'd love to bring our special guest on today. So we have with us David Sohn, who is the founder of Helpt, and man, doing some exciting stuff out there. David, really hearing a lot of really good things about your business, what you guys are doing in the channel. And yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear about one, you, and two, what you guys are doing out there to really help MSPs grow their business.
Awesome. Thanks, Frank. Can I start with the famous Frank?
Absolutely.
So my favorite famous Frank is Frank Zappa.
Yeah, for sure.
He put out an album that was an instrumental only jazz album that got explicit advisory warnings on it. So you couldn't buy it if you were under 18 or something like that. But it was just jazz instrumentals. Favorite
That is
Frank.
amazing. I've never heard that story, and I'd like to call myself a sort of music buff. But that's really interesting. So how did that even happen? Like the explicit label?
Somebody must have been on his case and didn't want him to publish something or whatever.
Or I heard, by putting that label, sometimes it could, increase growth, right?
It's like a marketing opportunity, right?
Yeah,
maybe.
Your book, I want to listen to the explicit stuff. Like maybe that's what it was. I think the record's called something from the devil, songs from the devil, or songs from something like that. And maybe that's kind of where it took that.
Where the explicit thing came from, maybe. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. So I know we're not here to talk about famous Franks. Thank you, Frank.
We're here to hang out, right?
That is our standard question going forward, Frank, though. When we bring somebody on as a guest, they have to, besides us as their favorite Franks, who else is their next favorite?
There you go. I like it.
Favorite Frank is Frank Zappa. So I'm David with Helpt, and I do appreciate what you said about what we're doing with the channel. We're an outsourced, help desk solution, which doesn't sound all that unique until you see that we're really focusing on the customer experience first. We're not just going to take a ticket from our clients and, look at it, see if we can do something with it, and if not, send it back. We're going to be on the front line as a part of our clients' teams to really promote and improve the customer experience for their end users. And so I think that that's what makes us a little bit unique. I love it. The channel is a fantastic place to be.
David, maybe could you just sort of, as a founder, right, you started this thinking about support needs in general, right? And were you experiencing some pain points that you were trying to fix, where, and how did that evolve into today's world of help? And not so much help specifically, but let's just talk general category of support, and what the customers that you're now customers, what were they seeing? What were they coming to you for?
Oh, absolutely. So, prior to founding Helpt, I was the global support organization for a company that sold widgets. We were selling transceivers into places like Verizon, Comcast, Charter, these massive companies. And we would have financially backed SLAs with them that said we had to answer the phone in a certain amount of time, or we had to respond to a ticket in a certain amount of time. And having a team of people means kind of managing the resources. And I know we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but one of the hardest things to do is, get people on call, or, have somebody work beyond their 40 hours a week. And so I kept trying to figure out ways to make that work. And I ultimately started looking out to, third-party call answering services or outsourced, support teams. And I just couldn't find an experience that I thought was worthwhile. And so luckily we had the opportunity to build that thing that I think that the market needs and do it the way that we think it should be done.
Yeah, I think that's the missing piece right now. I mean, I think we all were around, but when managed services was first coming in, and it was taking over from the whole IT break fix and that sort of environment, and people were just starting to get into managed services, and there were a couple help desk companies out there that were helping kind of grow that for for the new MSPs, but a lot of people were left with bad taste and things weren't getting done the way they should have been, and really ended up almost hurting in a sense. I think it helped people get over that hump and understand that they need to hire their own people and sort of thing. But at the same time, I think it did kind of shed some bad light on, that outsource piece. So how do we get past that, right? For those folks out there who either were a part of that, remember it, or, and you probably hear it every day, right? I'm guessing from some of those vendors that were out there before.
Yeah. I think that the way to get past that is to kind of go deeper when vetting an outsourced solution and understanding their strategy to scale. I know that our goal here today is to talk about expanding, your services without expanding your resources. We're in a situation where, as an MSP, we might think to ourselves, can I do it myself? If I can do it myself, then I don't need to outsource it to anybody else. If I do need to outsource it to somebody, why am I outsourcing it to somebody? Is it because I'd be better spent somewhere else? Is my time better elsewhere? And then when you get to that point in your decision-making process, understanding how exactly that outsourced provider, I'm not going to say this is just help desk, how that outsourced provider is planning on scaling. This is a channel of entrepreneurs. We know the pains of scaling. We know what it takes to do the scaling that we want to do. The question is, what's the strategy behind it? If the strategy is, hey, I'm just going to hire a whole bunch of people so that I can make sure that your tickets are covered, so that we have the capacity that you need as our help desk solution, then what you're missing from that is we're spending a lot of time training those people so that they can become a part of your team, so that they know the fundamentals of service, so that they know how to do these things and deliver that experience that you want for your customers. And I think that that's a little bit tough, and I think it's missing from a lot of the conversations.
Where do you just expand on that sort of the process of thinking through that? I mean, again, there's a, again, as an MSP that maybe a 5 to 10 employee, right? That's, adding one person, that's 10% increase in your staff, right? That's a big jump in a short amount of time. So how would you suggest, what are some of the, the pros and cons, if you will, or what are the full cost elements that you need to consider, right? So, and particularly it's in a scaling, right? Really trying to grow your business. It's different than just trying to support, your current stuff. And I mean, they're related, obviously, but what do you think about that? What's the process to help somebody that's on the line here to understand, what do they evaluate? How do they evaluate it?
I think personally, I go through a handful of questions that kind of start with that, can I do it myself? Then it goes into, can I find a tool that can do it? And then if I can't find the tool that can do it, or if it needs some intervention from humans, from somebody else, then it's, what's the fastest and easiest way for me to get that resource without having to run into the troubles of having that additional resource? You said, adding one technician is 10% increase in your team. It's 10% increase in managing people, which sometimes if you've got a stellar, person, it's no problem. But other times it could be something that really weighs on you and on the organization. And so I think, I don't know, hopefully more succinctly to answer your question, it's kind of like a flow chart. Can I do it? If I can do it, but I'd be better spent somewhere else, let me go do that. Can a tool do it? If a tool can't do it, then I need to find the fastest, easiest way for me to bolt on something else with the least cost. I don't know who's watching, but that's super important, right? Like when we talk about organizations and the way that a structure is built and the way that it grows, It's all about managing those costs. And I think that if, hey, I've got 40 hours a week of work for somebody, then you need to hire a person. Absolutely, that's a cost that you're going to have to expend. But if it's, hey, I've got a few hours, or I've got a little bit that needs to be done, sometimes it has to be fractional so that it can save you the money.
Well, I think
Well, yeah,
you hit.
oh, go ahead, Frank.
No, I was just going to say, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. It is a people thing too, right? I mean, and that's a big part of all of this. Is sometimes we created this great MSP business, and we're it's because we love technology and we love the things that we do to help people with the technology in their business, and that's that mindset. But managing people, man, that's a whole different ball game, right? Not only managing people, training them, getting them set up, having them show up, right? Having them not quit, and all of these different pieces that go into the people part, which that a ton of entrepreneurs initially, when you're first starting your business, understand that people element really well.
I have a feeling that I could ask you guys or anybody that we come across, who are people that you can count on? And they'll have immediately in their minds those handful of people that they can count on, that they know will be there thick and thin. They'll be there to support whatever it is that they're asking of them. And I think that the fact that it's so fast to recall shows you almost how hard it is to happen. And so I think if you were able to hire 100 people and have 100 people on your list of people that you could count on, then you're going to win the game. It doesn't matter what you're doing. But I think the reality of it is, when we're entrepreneurs building something, we have these plans in mind and we have these objectives that we need to meet. And we very quickly and easily plug resources in or things in, assuming that they're going to be 100%, versus realizing, hey, we're going to plug a resource in, but maybe it's only 60%, maybe it's only 70%. Maybe it's somebody that we can count on fully, and we've got a good thing plugged in there, but not all the time is that going to happen. And I think that that's where we have to kind of consider exactly how we grow and what it's going to look like to be able to be successful.
Yeah, well, it's kind of brought me into the thinking, right? Part of the new play, right? You can't have a discussion these days without talking AI, right? And you can't talk about without some automation that maybe comes from the AI or separate, but kind of in that mix. At Nodeware, we've got a integration with Roost, which is kind of one of the leading sort of automation tools for MSP that, you put this in, do this, if these things work, then do that kind of flow, which is helpful, again, to the point where the human needs to really validate that, either the process or the activity or whatever. So maybe, David, what are you guys seeing sort of relative to those areas that are impacting you and your deliverables?
So I think that that second question of, like, can a tool do it, is just wildly important to ask, considering that AI is the most fundamentally life-changing tool that we've had in a long time. And I think that with Roost, I love what they're doing. I love the automations. I love the way that you can build things in. I know that there's AI elements that can be bolted on or are already being bolted on. And I think that that's the tool that I would pick 9 times out of 10 over a lot of other things. When we talk about this idea of customer experience, it's just a completely different conversation. We want to have human-to-human interactions. I don't think I'm answering your question, but I'll go back a little bit to the tool idea. So dispatch as a service was something that somebody brought up to us recently. And I said, oh, that should be something that we can do. We have humans, we have people that can pick up the phone, that can, chase down tickets, that can do whatever it is that it needs to be done to make sure everything's taken care of. And when we started to go through this proof of concept, we realized that automations were doing a significant portion of it. And then we realized that AI could do another significant portion of it. And it's like, okay, fantastic. Like, let's just bolt those things together and solve the problem. And so that's what we're doing right now. We're, hopefully, knock on wood, I'm not letting the cat out of the bag. You will likely have a dispatch as a service solution that uses the humans of Helpt and, AI and automation of other tools. And I think that combination of things for us is what absolutely needs to happen.
Yeah. Well, I was kind of thinking, maybe kind of step back a little bit from today's world, but just I guess in those specifics. But if somebody's maybe to kind of just describe what levels of outsourced support are there, right? And don't be specific to help necessarily, but just what's the range of things? Let's kind of just see what's out there that people might have in their either have in their consideration set or should when they're looking to expand their business without having to add staff.
I think that there are call answering services out there that would be at the very tippy top of the iceberg, where you can ask somebody to answer the phone as you. That can be there to ingest some of the chats or the phone calls and then get them into your system. You'll hear about companies like Ruby, if you don't mind, Ruby, Answer Connect, Dayforce, they're all out there. And then on the complete opposite side, it seems like we have these other outsourced help desks where they're getting integrated into your systems and really just kind of like taking the tickets. And the reason for taking the tickets is because they've built an engine that allows for capacity. And so if you're an MSP that says, hey, I've got 100 tickets and I'm only able to get to 50 a day and I'm just getting buried, going out to that outsourced help desk and saying, help me out, crank out some of these tickets, it's a good idea. And then I think the last thing that I see a lot of is, staff augmentation. The same way that we were talking about reliability of people and, the things that it takes to manage somebody, there's a lot of organizations out there that are just offering folks that for a certain amount each month will become a part of your team, 100% dedicated. And so I think that there's those kind of three levels.
Yeah. Well, even on that last piece, right? I mean, that's a little bit of a distinction that I'll just plug you guys, right, from a help offer is that, you're paying as you use, as opposed to kind of maybe not pay as you go is similar, but some people, there might be some services where it's just, it's a retainer for up to 10 hours, whether you use 2 or 9.9, you pay the same amount, and then you go over that, then there's another scale. But maybe differentiate your model.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's all about consumption, like you mentioned. I think that the reason why it's about consumption is because of the ever evolving nature of business. That's just how it goes. You may have a contract that's about to land that is going to mean that you're going to need more time or you're going to need more engagement. With some of the other outsourced help desk solutions, it's going to take you 30 days to get completely integrated. You're going to have to outline a whole bunch of things. Versus with us, it's like, hey, we're already kind of in your systems. We're already acting as a part of your team, and we're able to just flex with you. The other less positive side of that equation is, maybe you lose a contract, or maybe a client, downsizes or whatever it might be. Similarly, you don't want to be kind of stuck in that same place where you're paying a certain amount a month. And so flexibility in business is required. Flexibility in what we're doing seems like a must-have.
Yeah, and that's what you don't really get with a traditional employee either, is you're only getting a certain amount of output, right? And a certain amount of work, and then all of those other things that we were talking about, the training and leaving and HR and all these other things are in that kind of melded into what the costs really are. When we're talking about this model, you really can see, here's my very specific cost for use, and it's this specific use. So in a model sense, it is very, very interesting. Now I would ask David, are there specific requirements for MSPs to be on certain systems? Because as you know, MSPs are all over the place with their stacks, right? Some have this PSA, some have that RMM, some have this backup and disaster, some have this AV, some have this, endpoint protection, blah, 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 right? Where does that fit in line with how you guys are providing service today?
That's a great question as well. I think that what I'm about to say is probably going to sound awfully naive to a lot of folks. But what we saw was the need to integrate directly within our client systems. What I started to see was somebody spending months and months to decide that they were going to go with a Halo or a Synchro or some PSA. And then they would come to us and say, hey, I really want you guys to do my help desk, but I'm not in ConnectWise Manage. I'm not in AutoTask. Can you work with us? And the answer for me was unequivocally, yeah, absolutely. After that, we had to figure out how to do that. And for us, the answer was, providing our agents with more of like a bifurcated system where the platform is presenting to them client groups of tools. And so they can sit down and, work for client A and then get a request for client B and just jump right into a different group of tools, work straight from their systems. I always kind of say that we're building super agents. I know we're talking about Helpt a lot now. Sorry for gushing. Have agents that are, MSP level technicians that know how to use all of the systems that our clients are bringing to us. We do a rigorous training system. We have a program with our LMS so that, they sit down and learn these things. Fundamentals are always going to be there, but learning a proof point over a Barracuda or an Avalon or whatever it might be is something that they get to experience and get to take with them, on their journey.
Yeah, and then don't apologize for what you're bringing to the table, because we had you on for a reason, David, and really it's because this is a kind of a new model in the way that you're doing things. And I think that it's something that everybody in the MSP space should be thinking about and should be looking at, because it is so difficult to grow that business internally, right? So it's really difficult to grow the business with new customers, right? So that's always an issue. But as you start to bring on new clients and you're growing that business, there's that second side of like, okay, how do I create a positive experience with this customer who's going to then be my lead gen moving forward, because we know 99% of new leads come from referrals, right? So that means I have to be doing a good job for my client, who then is going to refer me to new business for me to get new business. So it's all this circular thing anyway, right?
And we've had experiences on two sides of the coin there, where a client has come to us and said, I just signed this new contract and I have literally nobody that can, apply their time to it.
It can deliver what I just promised on.
Deliver when I was exactly. And so it's like, well, dang, what's the plan? And if the plan is, having some availability so that, the team can kind of set expectations and kind of work through the issue with the person, or, start the issue and then, have somebody else that's trying to streamline their capacity working the issue, maybe that's a solution. We also had somebody that came to us and said that they landed a contract and the person requested that they start, 3 weeks earlier than the contracted date. And to go above and beyond, they said, absolutely, we'll do that. And then it's the same thing. We got to scramble for those resources. In some cases, it's putting a Band-Aid on things. In other cases, it's spending the time to build out what's needed. In all cases, it's a cost calculation. If I'm just going to put a Band-Aid on something while I have a little bit of breathing room to figure everything else out, I don't want that Band-Aid to be super expensive. I also don't want to hire somebody on and then potentially change things in a way that means that I have to get rid of them. And so I think that it's all fluid, super flexible, and that's what we're trying to be for our clients, is just, fill the gaps.
Yeah, I think that's a powerful play, and I know in talking with different MSPs of different sizes over the last few years in particular, that, the offshoring has become kind of a popular topic, particularly for the bigger, the tens and $20 million MSPs and above, where, yeah, they have enough business and volume to offshore, but that's a lot of effort, a lot of commitment, right? It's not just a 1 month up and a couple months. It's you're getting an outsourced head from Philippines or India, right? It's you're committing to at least 6 months, if not a year, right? Of a full-time head, and there's overhead on it. So that's just not practical for the average MSP here. So
well, really you still have to manage that team, right, Frank? I mean, so like it's no different than if you hire a team, internally. You're still having to manage all of that, manage the people part of the whole equation that we're talking about. Are they going to show up? Do they not show up? How, what's the attitude like? What's the person like? All of those different things come into play when we're talking about, that in general, I think. So it is interesting for sure.
We have a client right now that I got an email from this morning who uses offshore resources as well as us because we're all US based, so that they can have, you know, healthcare systems, hospitals, whatever it is, being taken care of after hours through our team. Got an email this morning saying that their resource that's a dedicated resource is sick, and it's going to be for an extended amount of time. They're not sure what that looks like, but it was like, hey, we're chugging along, boom, that completely stops. And now what? And I'm not saying that hiring a person isn't going to give you that same experience, but, you know, hiring somebody overseas, it just changes the equation a little bit.
David, is there a time or some kind of rule that you guys have seen, or a threshold when somebody should at some point start looking at hiring that employee? Because I imagine, like any other outsourced service, really, we would look at ourselves like getting to that point of, you know, not having the need, or not having that need any longer, right? So is there some threshold that you guys have seen that it makes sense financially for someone to move forward with that?
I wish I could tell you that there was like a defined calculation for that, but I think it really comes down to what you guys were talking about before I came on. Like, you have somebody that takes care of your lawn. Why? You could take care of your lawn, but at some point in time, you valued your time elsewhere more. And so I think that for us, for our clients, they, you know, kind of see that, yeah, I could do this level 1 help desk stuff, or I could do whatever it is that needs to be done. But very quickly, while they're growing, their time's better spent elsewhere. And so I think that, you know, we can talk about the numbers and the dollars and cents and things like that, but it's really just, if you're desiring to grow, you have to know when to kind of give up that level of involvement in certain things. It's not just, you know, help desk, it's everything. And then that way you can continue to grow. You're just one person. You got to do more.
Yeah, I'd love to see by hand raise for those that are live right now. How many of you struggle with hiring people or keeping people, or, you know, any of that kind of stuff when it comes to the people part? You know, by a simple hand raise, how many of you are, you know, find that to be an issue? And yeah, we're seeing some definite hand raises in here. You know, I mean, that's one of the things.
Whether I mean, again, you know, interesting, you know, sort of on a national scale, the different, you know, job markets and the complications. I mean, the numbers we've seen from GTIA, now we can call it, the old CompTIA, some of the stats on the volumes of you know, open recs, as just as an example, right, of technicians in particular, right? So it's clearly it's got to be just a frustrating. And whenever I've talked to people, right, you know, when we look at as a node or a customer again, right, they realize, yeah, the customers need it. This one really needs it, so they've got it deployed now, and I can handle that management of it. But they're afraid to go out further because, you know, just that extra staff. So it's you know, one of multiple elements of running a business today, particularly an MSP business.
Well, we talked about this in our last episode too, just the cybersecurity perspective, right? I mean, you have a lot of MSPs coming into this cyber world now that, you know, where traditionally managed services was really IT support, IT, you know, handling workstation servers, you know, networks, and, you know, hardware and software and that sort of thing, where now this whole new cyber element is coming in. And I think the tough part about all of it is you're expected as the MSP to learn all this stuff, to figure it out, get the certifications, learn the tools. You know, I mean, if you're servicing your clients and doing a good job for them on the MSP side, how in the heck are you going to go down this road of cyber now, which is, I feel like, expected, right? I mean, it's something that is on everyone's heels. It's expected that you are going to go into this. It's going to be an evolution of your MSP business, is you moving into a cyber world. You know, how do you do that without, you know, having someone like Helpt or other, you know, cybersecurity outsourced companies that can help you provide these services? You know, are you seeing a lot of that, David, in at least where you guys are sitting, and people needing help with cyber stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that there's a lot of tools out there that are either, you know, kind of putting the resources in one place or providing you the resources. And I think that that comes down to that same, calculus. Do I want to learn how to do the thing, or do I want to have somebody do it for me? And when we look at other industries, in the world, the dentist doesn't do literally everything. The dentist could do a lot of things, but they found value in having somebody else do it. And I think the value and the flexibility of tool. I mean, Nodeware. I use Nodeware in my home network. Having a tool like that, it's like it's going to show me everything that I need to know. And then the question is, am I going to be able to be the one that does the thing, or am I going to need to learn how to do the thing, or am I going to have somebody that already knows how to do the thing do it in a much easier, faster way? And so I think that goes along everything that we do in business. Could I balance books or be an accountant? Absolutely. We have bookkeepers.
How long would it take you to get that book balance?
Exactly. How long would it take me to do that? And I think that AI tools, everything that's out there, it's because somebody ran into an issue and said, there's got to be a better way. And there are better ways out there. Now it's up to you or us as business owners to say, this is the better way that I want. Maybe I really like doing the books, and so I don't want anybody to do the books for me. But it comes down to having those options and guiding your own path.
Yeah, I think going back to the, what Frank was talking about earlier, the other Frank, about AI, it's an interesting thing, right? We're seeing more and more of it come into play today. We're seeing things be indistinguishable, meaning, now AI is calling people and talking to them specifically about things and answering questions in real time live, and it's indistinguishable from a real person. One thing you could say is, that is in itself kind of scary to think about from a customer service perspective, right? Where could it go if it went down a bad path, right, with a client? And I think we have to really be a little bit concerned about handing over that person-to-person type environment to AI. I think it can help us in the tool side really well. This thing happens all the time. It's repeatable. It's something that AI could handle for us. But at the same time, when we talk about that people-to-people interaction, I think you got to be a little bit concerned with, that interaction in itself. And where I think that's where a lot of these tools or solutions are trying to go. Is that something that you guys struggle with as far as like how much AI do we incorporate? How much do we not? What requires a real person, what doesn't, that sort of thing?
I'm going to try not to get super esoteric, but apologies if I do. I always talk about the different generations of people, and there are still massive amounts of the population that want to pick up the phone and talk to somebody. And maybe they don't want to talk about the issue, maybe they just want to vent, maybe they're frustrated about whatever, but they want to have that human-to-human interaction. Do I think that AI is going to get there at some point in time? Yeah, AI Granny, I heard about recently. It's a thing that one of the British telecoms is putting into their phones, where you can send spam callers to talk to the AI Granny, which is hilarious. And they're just having this conversation.
AI Granny?
Yeah, it's an AI, embodied person or whatever. I don't know how that works. And they have this long conversation with the spammer, and they just kind of like lead them on.
I love it.
Voicemail or send to Granny, send to AI Granny. And so I think that like AI is going to get there. There's still a lot of people that are going to want to get to the fastest route as fast as possible. And it's not even just getting to the solution, it's getting to that route that's going to take them to the solution. And,
I think the perfect example that always frustrates me is when you go to a website and you're trying to get support or just ask, you're just looking for something, and the bot comes up, right? And maybe you're trying to get a hold of your insurance company about a bill and a statement. I got one here yesterday. I was like, well, I don't remember that charge, and why is that, whatever. But going through that, and you see that little bot, and you know what? I just want to talk to a real person. Just I know this isn't going to get there. So how do I get to that real person? And so there are things that they can answer quickly and easily, great. Okay, now I'm at level 2. Let's go.
When Google came out, did people really like inherently know how to Google things? I don't know. I feel like it took a little bit of time to kind of get there. And I think that at some point in time, AI is going to match the, I don't know, general populace's ability to use AI, and then we're going to end up in this much more efficient place. And I think that that's still many years away. In that time, we're using AI to do like call sentiment analysis. We're using it to try to present the right thing to our agents to make things smoother, faster, easier. You talk to a lawyer, all they're going to want to do is spend the least amount of time possible doing a thing. And until that path is using AI in its entirety, we're going to have humans that are going to be able to go faster.
Yeah, interesting.
Now, David, when you talk about agents and, on the help side, really, is that a dedicated person to you? Meaning, like, am I always going to know who's the one dealing with that, or is it distributed across your agents, the work that is provided? And it seems like the latter would be more efficient. But can you tell me a little bit about how that works?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do a pod system. So that means that if you were to sign on as a client, you would have a pod of people that you're interacting with on a regular basis. Some of our clients really want to have that human touch, that bio presented to their end users. And so we'll do, hey, this is Mike. He's from Virginia. He likes long walks on the beach or whatever it is, because we know that that's somebody that's in the pod that's going to be taking all of those calls. Those pods are distributed between multiple clients for that sake of efficiency. They're all W-2'd at this point. They all, not all of them, some of them wear Helpt shirts at work. But yeah, we're all internal to Helpt right now.
Okay, that's really cool.
And you probably have various levels of how much you need to identify as the MSP, right? Or I mean, to the end user. If the end user is coming to you, right? How much do you say, oh, I'm with Helpt or I'm with MSP Joe? And yeah, it's all part of your service agreement, I would assume, right? It's just how you map it out.
We're fully white labeled with almost everybody. And so we would say, hey, thanks for calling MSP Joe. This is David. How can I help you? And then work through whatever the issue is.
Okay, good. That makes
One
sense.
They are truly, signing on to a team that is almost like their own without having to manage them or do any of that kind of stuff. That is really that is unique and cool. And at other places, that type of service can be very expensive. So I imagine that's one of the things that you guys are, really separate, or having as a separation from others that are differentiator, from others out there.
Just imagine if you were, one person starting your MSP and you wanted to be able to fill out a new RFP or, bid on something. You could say with Helpt, you're multiple more people that you're able to cover 24/7. Like you immediately get bigger as that single owner with bolting on Helpt. On the flip side, we've got some clients that are massive organizations and they're striving to get better as well, but it's things like 95% speed to answer under 30 seconds, but they want it to be 98%, and so they bolt on Helpt to kind of fill that gap. And it's really it. Like our goal is to just wherever you need us, plug in and do what's needed.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. And with all of that, if you guys have questions that you want to ask to David, myself, or Raimondi, feel free to throw it in the questions tab there. We'll definitely get to those as we kind of get towards the end of this conversation. And I know a lot of this kind of surrounded Helpt, but really at the end of the day, we are talking about, outsourcing, which every MSP is an outsourced, IT company for someone. So the just taking that realization that, not only are you the outsourced company for your clients, but you can utilize outsourcing to really help you grow your business. So, whether it's Helpt or whether it's, cybersecurity consulting firms or anybody who could help you grow your business in that way, I think the conversation is really, really around all of that, right? And that it is something that everyone should look at as a way to help them grow. because, how else do you do it, right? And the opposite is either you don't, or you have a limited amount of clients that you can manage and handle, or
Well, yeah,
and some
ultimately your
people are happy
quality
with that.
drops
But
enough
yeah,
that the problem's going to solve itself because your customers are going to leave you. Right. So,
well, yeah, I mean, there's the potential for that for sure. But I think that, like you said, it's almost this kind of new world of how can you go out and do it. And David, you made a great point. Like, you could be one guy and start this thing, and if you're good at sales, right? Yeah, and that's a hard part too, because a lot of us are into tech. So how do you do that? Do you guys have any sales element to your employees at all, or is it strictly tech stuff?
Yeah, we have our internal team, and then we've dabbled with doing activities like picking up the phone for sales inbound.
Like lead gen and that sort of thing?
No, kind of like yeah, if somebody else was doing lead gen, just the availability for our clients.
Oh,
So
gotcha.
client saying, hey, I'm looking for Frank. He called me about being my outsourced IT. We'd field that and send it to the right place.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, that's again another one of those things that is really hard for MSPs to hire a salesperson. I know that from experience, that is one of the toughest things for them to do as well. So, getting good tech talent is tough, but also getting good salespeople is tough, and those who would stay, right? So it's just a whole nother line of this.
In the world of abundance that we live in right now, it's about being there, and so on that sales side, it's somebody's calling you back. If you're not there, they're just going to call back the other person that called them, or they're going to move on to the next thing, or they might even be vindictive and weird about it and be like, that guy is trying to sell me something and didn't pick up my phone call. That's where we could help on that end.
Yeah, awesome. I think we did have one question that Nora had gotten before. Nora, are you there? Can you read that out for us potentially?
Yes.
Oh, she's
Question
there.
was, what would be the best way to use Helpt Flow for a one-man MSP?
Awesome, great question. Thank you to whoever asked it. Helpt offers 3 levels of service. The first one is really that technical live answer. It's called Help Now. Pick up the phone. We ask the right questions. We apply ITIL methodologies to determine a priority. If it's a P1, we're going to escalate it appropriately. If it's anything else, we're going to send it in with all the details. The second level is Help Flow, which is what's being asked about right now. Help Flow is more like FCR, first call resolution type stuff, where we're going to take the caller or the chat person through a handful of steps to try to resolve their issue, to deflect the case. It's structured troubleshooting. It's where somebody calls and says, hey, I need a password reset. You say, great, let's verify you, let's reset your password. Then our client doesn't have to deal with that. The last one is that fully embedded help desk. But to answer the question a little bit more directly, Helpt Flow allows us to kind of put those issues on a conveyor belt for our clients with deflection involved. So if I'm a one-man band, if I'm not available 24/7, Helpt Flow is. If somebody calls in the middle of the night saying, hey, there's a server down, we're going to understand what's going on. We're going to ask them to do a couple of things, potentially see if we can remediate or resolve in one way or another. And if we can't, we're going to call out to that one-man band, wake them up for the important stuff. If it's something like, hey, my keyboard's not working right, and we're able to resolve it, then Helpt Flow will take the user through all of the steps, resolve the issue. Our client will wake up or see a ticket come into their box that says issue resolved. They can do a quick review and they don't need anything. If it's something where we have a little bit more of a complex thing happening with the end user, we're there, we're fielding it, we're taking them through that structured troubleshooting. And during that process, we're capturing the details that they might need to be able to send over an escalation bundle to our client. It's a lot easier to get that escalation bundle and start working than it is to kind of ingest that early on stuff and take them through a handful of troubleshooting steps. Helpt Flow, we always say it's all about saving time. Time that we spend is time that our clients won't have to spend. The availability gets added on, the case deflection gets added on. I think that the way we could help a one-man band is through that availability and deflection. Sorry, I kind of went a long route for that.
No, that makes complete sense. Yeah, and that I think again that it brings it all together, and you have a lot of really great options there for folks to really be able to utilize the service. With all that, I know we're coming to the top of the hour. If anyone wants to learn more about what we're doing, either on Nodeware, IGI services, or Helpt, you can go to nodeware.com/frankly speaking. So nodeware.com/frankly speaking to learn more about pretty much any of these topics. David, I know you guys will have some links and stuff there as well. But if they want to get in touch with you, David, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you as well?
So our website is gethelpt.com, GETHELPT.com.
Okay. And again, you can find that from, we'll have that up online at that nowhere.com/frankly speaking, but really, really interesting topic. And I think that, this is just so important today. I think the new MSP model that really brings in cyber and all these other things, it's one of those things that are almost going to have to do this type of thing to move yourself ahead.
Just for burst mode, right? I mean, just the whole, you just don't know, but having availability to quick and not have to go scramble to find something when you need it, right? Just have it in your back pocket and ready to go, and then once you find out and start using it a bit, you're going to go more. So it's a great flexibility tool that everybody really needs.
Yep, I love it. So from both of us Franks here, and from David, who's a new honorary Frank, thank you guys so much for being on with us today, and have a fantastic rest of your week, and take care.
Bye-bye.